I observed a teacher in his classroom through the eyes of an administrator. The instructional strategies that were used were exactly what Mr. Richardson had stated before I observed: teaching, demonstration, peer tutoring, and group work. I also noticed note-taking, problem-solving, and some active participation taking place as well. The students were grouped academically with 2, 3, or 4 students in each group. Student engagement seemed to be lost very quickly once the warm-up had started. The warm-up was for the students to get to page 3 in their packet. During this time, the teacher was at his desk checking attendance and getting things organized for about 6 to 7 minutes. The teacher was not walking around assessing the students as they were completing their warm-ups. Once the warm-up was over, the teacher went over one problem with them and then had them continue working together to complete the rest of the packet. The packet had pre-made notes and examples in it that the teacher ended up having to go over since the students confessed that they did not understand the concept and they did not know how to read the notes that were provided to them. The teacher had been absent the previous day, which made sense as to why the students seemed so confused. It is great that the students let Mr. Richardson know when they were confused, but he could have known that if he would have walked around during the warm-up. The teacher was very observant from then on during group work when the students looked lost. He encouraged the students to work together and to use their calculators. When the students were working, Mr. Richardson was constantly walking around the room, checking the students' work and making sure they understood. He shows the students why he did what he did on the examples, which is crucial for the students to know. Mr. Richardson kept reminding the students how they worked so well in groups last week and encouraged the same effort from them then. It is always important to relate things back to the students from what they had done before so they know what should be done now. When the students disagreed with Mr. Richardson, he would ask them, "Well, why do you think this number is negative?" Or, "Why do you think this number is positive?" This promotes the students to really think about what it should be and gets their brain working for reasoning behind their thoughts. I really liked how Mr. Richardson would ask these type of questions to his students. The students end up collaborating and working together, which is exactly what Mr. Richardson wanted the students to do. The teacher was very good at giving real-life scenarios to relate positive and negative numbers to something the students can understand. He used the example of borrowing money from someone. The students can quickly pick up why 2 negatives still make a negative, etc., because they heard the real-life example. Real-life examples are super important in math and in other subjects. Therefore, the students can always relate the content to something they know. It makes it easier for them to grasp the concept at hand and to understand it from another view. The classroom management became difficult during group work, as some students lost their focus. While observing, I can tell the students lost their focus because they are confused and don't know how to work the problems that were given. It takes a while for Mr. Richardson to see that. Once he finally did, he stayed over in the corner with a specific group of students that were confused for a while and walked them through the problems step by step. Meanwhile, the other students would notice that Mr. Richardson was deeply engaged and working with the group. So then they began to get off task. As a teacher, it is very difficult to keep the rest of the class on task while working with a small group who needs your undivided attention. You must always multitask and keep your eyes and ears open in order to be aware of what is going on in your classroom. The teacher was really good about guiding the students through the process of solving equations with variables on both sides. He didn't just tell them how to do it. He showed them and made them think of what to do next. If I were teaching this classroom, I would have had the answer key to the packet posted somewhere in the room so the students could regularly go check their answers to make sure they were getting them correct. It is hard to be in 7 places among 7 different groups of students at one time, especially with many students not understanding the concept and needing your undivided attention. As I was observing, I noticed the anchor charts in Mr. Richardson's classroom. His anchor charts had problems on them, but did not show how to work the problems out, nor did it show the process of how to get the answer that was provided. I am very big on anchor charts in my personal classroom, and I've seen the benefits of them. Going out and observing another teacher that uses anchor charts was surprising to me, and how we all make anchor charts so differently. The students cannot benefit from anchor charts if they are not made well and to a level that students can understand. An anchor chart must have examples and the process on there so the students can see, relate, and understand the concept. This was the 3rd day of the students working on this specific lesson of solving equations with variables on both sides. The students should have this concept down by now. Mr. Richardson is supposed to move on to inequalities with variables on both sides tomorrow. If the students do not understand equations with variables on both sides, then they will be just as confused doing inequalities because it is the same process in order to solve. Being a previous 8th grade math teacher, I do know that in order to solve equations with variables on both sides, the students must truly master and understand 1- and 2-step equations. I did not ask Mr. Richardson how the students did on those concepts, but that would have been very helpful to know where the students got lost and why some of the students were so confused. If this lesson rose again, I would have taken more time to go over the warm-up and do more examples with the students until 80 to 85% of my students understood them. It looked as though 80 to 85% of his students did not understand, which means you need to go back to the board and reteach the lesson. I also would have been walking around during the warm-up to see where my students are, especially if I had been out the day before. Knowing this, he would have known if he needed to do more examples on the board before he let the students independently or group work. He really would have been able to send the students off to group work if he would have known where they were at. I would have assigned homework the previous night and would have checked it as a class, collected it, and glanced at it very quickly after picking it up to see how well the students mastered this concept before beginning class. I also would have done an exit ticket at the end of class of a simple problem with solving variables on both sides to see how well the students that were confused grasped the concept that day. Sometimes it is good to do exit tickets, even though it is from the same material that was taught that day, especially when students were working in groups, because exit tickets are done individually. Therefore, you can really see and assess the student's knowledge on the concept. Also, it is good to see from those students you had been working with all period, where they understand and where they sit now with the concept. I collected information and identified trends during his lesson about the student's learning environment. As an administrator, my lens will continue to grow by observing teachers and their ability to engage students while facilitating learning. I enjoy going out and observing other teachers because it makes you personally grow in many ways. It is always good to gain ideas from others. I would have enjoyed watching the other 8th grade math teachers teaching this lesson so I could compare the good and the bad vertically across the grade to see where their students were sitting and align to Mr. Richardson's students. Thank you.